It is now my pleasure to introduce Rick Coleman Sr. Rick is the owner of Jackpot Chicken, which he operates with his wife in the greater Cleveland area. Jackpot Chicken has been a Best of Cleveland top finisher every year since it was launched. And Rick recently published the book, So You Want to Be a Food Trucker, to help other entrepreneurs launch successful businesses. Rick and his family live in Lake County, and in his spare time, he coaches track and also mentors aspiring entrepreneurs. Thanks so much for joining us, Rick, and good morning. I'd like to first ask you to introduce yourself and to give us a brief history of your entrepreneurial journey.
So I began my career in business actually when I was a junior in college. At the time, I was at the College of Worcester, and two of my best friends and I began a commercial. We actually bought into a commercial cleaning franchise, and the president of that company is actually a Painesville native, and so he was running a very successful commercial cleaning company, and so I got into that, and I ran that company for 7 years. I understood that at the end of the day, running a commercial cleaning business was something I was not passionate about. So I sold that business and I got into the bar business. A complete 180 from what I was accustomed to. But it was something that I kind of feel like most men want to do in life is they always want to own a bar. That's like every man's dream, I believe. And so I purchased a bar, ran that for 8 years. At the same time, towards the end, I started a carryout business, which was the second of my sports bar. So it was Wingspot Painesville and Wingspot Eastland. From there, the carryout business wasn't as successful as I dreamt it would be. It was actually my first venture where I lost money. So at the time, there were a few food trucks in the Cleveland area, and there was this huge, craze around the business from other parts of the country. But at that time in Cleveland, it was still fairly new. So I found someone that was selling a food truck. They actually were operating two at that time, so they were willing to get rid of their first food truck. So I bought that, and then I began my food truck journey, and here I am now.
Okay, that's great. Now you're an author too. Add that to your resume. What motivated you to write this book, and how long did it take you?
So my buddy, one of my best friends and I, when we were in high school, we always talked about writing a book. We felt like because of some of the things that we have experienced in life from a personal level, we felt we had a story to tell. I never got around to fulfilling that, dream of writing a book until COVID hit. So when the country when Ohio was quarantined, I figured I would make the best of that opportunity. We were our business was shut down for a few months. So I actually wrote my book in 2 months. It took about 3 to 4 hours a day. Usually it was late nights. Because I have family obligations. So it was usually late night. I was up writing, and I got it done in about 2 months. And from there, it was about another month or so of editing, and, I had some people that I really trusted. Some are actually, all three of them are authors themselves. And so they helped me through the process of editing and self-publishing to get the ball rolling.
Okay, great. You sound like a quintessential entrepreneur. You just can't take a break. You've always got something.
Definitely.
So what are your goals for the book, and how are you going about accomplishing those goals?
So, my goal wasn't to be the number one selling author in the world. Obviously I'm passionate about the food truck business, and that takes up primarily all of my time. But my goal was just to write a book from an actual food trucker's experience. A lot of books I recall reading when I got into the business, I could just tell that they weren't written by people that were actually operating the business on a daily basis. And so I come across so many different people on daily stops or just through Facebook pages and other groups that I'm a part of that pertain to the food truck business. And there's always new people that want advice. How do I get into the business? What do I do? What are some of the experiences that others have went through? And so I just wanted to write something that I could publish and people could use. And that's my goal, just to help shorten the learning curve of everyone else that's getting into this business.
Okay. So what are the 3 main tips or concepts that you hope readers take away after reading this book?
The first one, and I think this is the most important, is food trucking is not as easy as everyone may think it is. You know, from a consumer standpoint, most people see the food trucks at large events, and they see the lines of people, and they're thinking about how much money that you're making. And don't get me wrong, those are the great parts of the business. But, you know, every day something breaks. Every day. Guaranteed there's something that's going to go wrong every single day. And you just have to be able to adjust. You know, you have to be able to deal with adversity and improvise on the fly, because so many different things are going to be thrown at you on a daily basis in this business. So that would be the number one most important point, is not as easy as you may think it is. But that also doesn't mean that you're not capable of having success in this business, because I think it's an industry where, you know, if you're truly passionate about cooking and you can work at a high pace, you can be successful. The second point I would say would be to find your why. And in the book, you know, I touched on in a few chapters of why I got into the business, what led me to actually give up everything else I was doing in life to strictly be a food truck owner. And so I think it's very, very important that even if you're not trying to be a food truck owner, because everyone won't be, you can take concepts and ideas from this book and apply it to any other business. And so find your why. What are you passionate about? Why do you do this? What is going to get you up every day at 6 in the morning to operate this business? And what's going to keep you running and going when you're operating on fumes? You know, because that's the life of an entrepreneur. The third part would be, let me see, and this was new to me, and so this was a challenge for me, I'm going to be honest, is to utilize the power of social media. I'm only 37, you know, but I'm not a huge technical person. Obviously, I had a few issues getting on here this morning, so, you know, I'm not really big into technology or social media, to be honest with you. But from the aspect of growing and operating my business, I utilize it on a daily basis, and it is so powerful. Whether people are posting pictures of your food, of my truck, of my staff, or me, or us doing it ourselves, that reach that you can gain through social media is something that you just can't, you know, it's priceless. You know, it's free advertising, you know, and so you have to take advantage of that. So those would be the 3 points that I would say I would hope people take away from the book.
That's great, thank you. So how are you adapting to the challenges of doing business during COVID? Examples of those challenges and how you're addressing them?
Yeah, so it was a bit challenging in the beginning. Normally my fiance and I would begin operating the business in late March, early April, depending on when the weather broke here in Northeast Ohio. But obviously we quarantined, I think it was like March 15th this year. And so, you know, for us, where, you know, that's our livelihood, that's how we make money. And so the first adjustment that we had to do was I actually had to go back and rely on the following that I built when I had the wing business in Painesville. And so what we did was I was fortunate enough that my buddy owns a sports bar here in Mentor. And so he allowed us to operate our carryout business. So we transitioned from our food truck during COVID to strictly operating on the carryout and delivery side, just that we were able to generate some revenue during COVID. You know, so we did that 3 days a week. It was a huge success. It was an opportunity for people that were in, you know, this area to have our food that normally wouldn't, because the majority of our business is on the west side of Cleveland and you know, Akron and Canton, all those areas. That's what we travel to, and so everyone here supported. It was a huge success, and I'm very, very thankful for him for allowing us to utilize his kitchen space because it's easier to run a carry-out delivery business from a restaurant kitchen versus a food truck. And then I'm also very thankful for the people that, you know, supported me in the past in my bar business, but then they continue to support once we had the opportunity to sell food here in Lake County.
Great. So what's the best advice that you would give to would-be entrepreneurs? And I suspect we have a lot of those folks on the call today. I know we have my intro to entrepreneurship class at Lakeland. What's the best advice? And you can give us a lot. You don't have to just give us a lot. That's probably you're thinking about.
Yeah, so I'm a very straightforward, blunt individual, and there's two pieces of advice that I would offer. The first one is, do you, everyone else will adjust. And I say that because, you know, if you have a vision of what you want your business to be and how things are going to operate, you have to stick to that. You have to literally have tunnel vision in this process of being an entrepreneur, because there's so many distractions. There's so many outside people that will want to influence and sway maybe how your business is run. End of the day, you have to do you and stick to your, you know, what you think will be successful and how you want to operate your business. There's a phenomenal book written by Russell Simmons. It's titled Do You. And I read that book when I was in college, and it's one of those things that I always kind of revert back to when I read ever so often, if I ever feel like I'm swaying away from what my vision and what my goals are. The second thing would be, understand that everyone doesn't want you to be successful. You have to understand that when you're an entrepreneur, that's the truth. You know, don't build your business under the basis that everyone around you is going to support, right? A mentor of mine, Terrell Dillard, who owns the commercial cleaning company that I spoke of earlier, he gave me a book when I was maybe 21, 22 years old. And it was all about building your business around your cold market, right? Because those are the people that are going to truly help and grow and support your business. Not to say that the warm market, meaning people that you know won't, but sometimes, you know, you're going to deal with people that either want something for free, you know, they want you to discount your services, and whatever the case may be, you know. So, and then also, again, everyone's not going to support you. Everyone's not going to support you. So you have to understand that. You have to be willing to accept no's along the way of being an entrepreneur, and just keep going, right? Just keep going. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter. You know what your vision is. If you do you, and if you build your business around a cold market, meaning people that you just don't know, if you have a good product, a good service, and you can truly offer that to people, people will support you.
Thank you. So getting into the details of the book, was there an advantage to starting the food truck while you were still operating the bar?
Yes, for sure. So I already knew how to source my goods, you know, the food that I was going to be purchasing to sell off of the truck every day. I knew how to purchase equipment and where I can go, you know, to get the best deals. So I learned all that from operating the bar business. So it definitely shortened the learning curve for me getting into the business. I would say initially, because I did start operating my food truck strictly in Lake County, that the reputation I had for food out of Paynesville definitely helped. Because even though the names were different, people knew the face. You know, they knew my face, they knew my fiance's face, and the people that worked for me, they knew our faces, so they knew the quality of the food was going to be the same. So that definitely, you know, helped me a lot. The last thing I would say was I already understood numbers, right? I understood my food costs. I understand how to generate those numbers and how I can, you know, ultimately make a profit.
Okay. So if you were to do one thing differently in business, what would it be?
For the food truck business, I would say I would probably build my business more around catering. because that's one thing that I truly noticed due to COVID was that there's so many opportunities to grow the my food truck business through just strictly catering. And don't get me wrong, I did a lot of catering before, but now between corporate, weddings, graduation parties, family get-togethers, neighborhood events, that's guaranteed revenue, and it's so much more beneficial than going to just going to a stop and hoping you serve 30, 40, 50 people. So I would definitely just gear my business more towards the catering side and the larger events that I already do here in Northeast Ohio.
Okay. So if you could add content to the book, now that you've written it, would you add something, or are you considering writing other books?
Yes. So I'm happy with the content that's in the book. One thing I guess I would have added if I were able to go back would be to just talk a little bit more about where the types of equipment, that people will need to operate. That's the one thing I did not put into the book. And the reason I didn't is because every food truck is going to be different. What I utilize on a daily basis is completely different than someone that might run a hibachi style truck. So I didn't add that, but some people that have read the book have given me some positive feedback. They said that's the one thing, where could they specifically purchase equipment and what types of equipment, So I would add that. I am going to write a second book. I'm definitely going to do that. That was my goal once I got this one completed. It's going to be called Horror Stories of the Trucking Business. And what I would like to do, is to get one story from every truck in every state to give to every. I want to get a truck from every state and have them give me their worst food truck experience, right? So, and then I'm going to add all of my stories in there as well. So it'll be a little bit of comedy, I guess, because stories that you'll hear, you would never believe. Some of the things that happen in the food truck business is crazy. So I would love to write that book so people see, again, a different perspective of our business.
Okay. I see a TV opportunity here, too.
You never know, but there's a lot of horror stories. And they're horror stories during the moment, right? But now I can sit back and I just laugh at them. My fiance and I, we laugh all the time about some of the things we've experienced in this business.
Okay, so I've got one final question, and I want to open up questions to everybody else here on the line. What's the best business decision you've ever made, and why was it the best?
The best business decision I ever made was to stop operating my sports bar. It consumed a lot of my time. It kind of hindered some relationships that I had with people because, the bar business is really tough. It is really tough. It's early mornings, late nights, and depending on, the area that you're in, it could be extremely, extremely challenging. And so I say that was the best decision I ever made because I'll never forget the day that I stopped operating the bar. I was actually driving down the street with my son in the car. And at the time, I think he was maybe, 8 or 9 years old maybe. And I said to him, how do you feel about Dad not having a bar anymore? And he said, I finally have my dad back. So, to me, it was the best decision I could ever make. There's no greater decision. At the end of the day, you're going to, have a lot of bumps in the road, but to know that my family felt like I was present again at the world too.
So now I'd like to open up questions to everybody here on the line.
So the first question is regarding the book. And Rick, it's how did you choose the manner in which you published the book? So how did you choose a publisher? Did you self-publish or use a larger publishing house?
No, I actually self-published. Again, I never thought, on March 15th, I never thought that I would be writing a book. It's just something that just kind of happened. So I actually leaned upon my cousin and two other individuals that are self-published authors, and they kind of directed me. So I self-published through KDP, which is Amazon's publishing host.
Okay. And then another question regarding the food truck business. Is the food truck business a 12-month per year, 12-month year-round business in the Cleveland area?
That's a yes and no question. So here's how it works. Generally speaking, you'll operate your business from, let's just say, April through October. You know, it's just because we really don't know what the weather is going to be like. But I have been fortunate enough to find opportunities for catering or some larger corporate stops during the winter time. And so if you can find those opportunities, you will, you will be able to generate some revenue in the winter time. But generally speaking, everyone shuts down because you're going to, for the most part, I believe most people will generate enough capital during that 6-month period to sustain a whole year.
Okay. And then we've got a question on social media. How do you get, and I know you talked a little bit about it, but how do you get a larger following on social media? How do you promote it? And what have you found to be the best platform to use?
So I started off really just using Facebook in the beginning because I was comfortable with Facebook. I just started operating Twitter and Instagram within the last year, so for me it was always Facebook. And so I just posted a lot of pictures, and I always made posts on a daily basis about where I would be, so people knew where they can find the truck. And from there, I just asked people to, when they come to the truck and they try the food and they love it, leave a review. And so to leave reviews, people are able to see the review. Then you just kind of there. Now, Instagram is a really big thing. Just posting pictures. My staff is better at taking care of Instagram than I am. They make sure to tag where we're at every time. They take all the pictures. So I will give credit to them because it's not something that I necessarily like or use a lot myself. Like I don't even have a personal Instagram or Twitter. So I rely upon my staff a lot as far as the Instagram and Twitter goes, but the Facebook, you are able to pay for advertising through Facebook. If you like to do that, it's really cheap. You can reach 2,000 people, 3,000 people in your area for $10. So to advertise through Facebook is way more beneficial than through a traditional advertising agency.
So when your kids get a little bit older, they can take that over for you.
So my oldest son is 17, and for the most part this summer, him and my nephew have operated the business. My oldest son loves the bar business, so he already understands how to operate every piece of kitchen equipment. He knows how to run the front of it. He knows how to do all these things on the food truck as well. So my hope is that when he comes home from college in the summer, he'll be able to operate.
Got it. Are there any plans to expand to more than one food truck?
Yes, so I'm actually in the process now of some different trucks. That's something that I feel that I'm able to do at this point. I should have said this earlier, but another piece of advice I would give people is don't grow too fast. Don't try to grow too fast. Because that's what I did, having a bar, having to carry out food truck at the same time. I'm ending my 5th year now in the food truck business. And so I'm at the point where I have a large enough and a phenomenal staff to where I operate the second food truck business, whether it's the same concept or different. I feel comfortable doing it.
Hey, Connie, forgive me for interrupting for a second. We're getting some feedback while he's talking. So I'm thinking maybe if you can mute yourself while you're not speaking, that might help resolve some of the issue.
Okay. Rick, on menu items, how do you change your menu, or do you stick with the same menu? Do you try different items?
Yeah, so in the beginning, I would change my menu every week, and my food cost is probably 60–70%, which was double what it was supposed to be. Reason being is, if let's say I had a week scheduled Monday through Friday or Saturday, I would purchase all my food ahead of time. Well, if the stops didn't plan out the way I hoped, I'm left with all this food, and I had already sent out the menu for the next week's stops. And so my food cost was through the roof. So now what we do is we've gotten to the point where we know what people like. We know what works best for us, and our food cost is probably 20% now. And so we have the same menu pretty much everywhere we go except for catering. And so what we do for catering is I give our customers about 12 to 15 menu options, and then they're able to pick 3 entrees and 2 sides from everything that I offer them to customize their own menu.
So that takes care of the questions in the chat box. So I'm hoping that people, if you're sitting on that question, put it in there, get it out. But I'm wondering, while we're waiting for more of those to come in, if you could share one of your food truck horror stories.
Sure. Let's see. So this one's probably, man, I have so many. I probably could write 50 myself, to be honest with you, without relying upon anyone else. But this one, my fiance and I were driving to a corporate stop in Brecksville. And so we're here in Mentor, so it was about 35–40 minutes. And so we're loading up the truck and we're driving, and we're about Wilson Mills, Mayfield Road area, and we just hear this loud clanking noise. And I'm like, oh, God, I'm like, and this was our second year in business now, so we're just getting the hang of things, and we're not really making a whole lot of money at the time, so we can't afford a lot of breakdowns. So I'm driving, I'm just praying to God, like, please just allow us to make it to this stop so we can just make the money. I'll get to the shop and we'll figure it out after that. So thankfully we were able to get to the stop. We had a really, really good day, and so we're driving home from Brecksville, and the noise is getting louder. And so we're, again, about the Mayfield area, Beechwood. And so I get off of Mayfield Road, and I pull into that Walmart that's over there. And so I'm looking around the truck as if I'm a mechanic. I don't really, I'm looking around the truck, I'm looking underneath the truck, she's looking, and I just can't figure out what it is. So I said, well, here's what we're going to do. We're just going to take 91 all the way down. And then, we just take the side roads and get to our commissary. And so she's like, that sounds like a good idea. If something happens, at least we're not on the freeway. I personally hate breaking down the freeway. It's like a pet peeve of mine. And so we're driving down, and we're getting close to 91 and Route 6 over by, there's a market over there. I can't think of the name of it. And so I'm driving in the left. There's 4 lanes. I'm driving in the left lane. There's a car to my right, and I just feel the truck just drop. I look, and my tire is rolling down the street past me in the middle of traffic. So obviously, I experienced some explicitness. So I veered to the right. I just barely missed that car. I was able to get the truck into a parking lot, and we sat there, and it took maybe 2 to 3 hours before we could get a tow. And so, we couldn't find the tire. I had no idea where the tire was. I'm operating on 3 wheels. So we finally get a tow, and then we're coming back. And so we get to the tow guy, and I don't know why we ended up coming back that route maybe the next day in our own personal vehicles. But I look off to the side of the road, and these bushes is the tire. And so what happened was, and I'll talk about this in the book about having reliable mechanics. At the time, I had a person that wasn't necessarily so reliable, and he tightened the studs on my tire way too tight, and so the studs actually snapped off. And so I'm actually looking for a picture in my book. I can show you One thing I'm going to show, so I don't know if everyone can see this. So this picture in the book right here is of me standing with this gentleman I'm standing with. I've never met him in my life, but he was the site manager at this construction site next door. So we were just sitting there talking, and I had nothing to do but pass time and, just talk to this guy for about 2 or 3 hours until we could get towed. But having your tire fall off is, it's tough, especially when you're operating a 15,000-pound vehicle.
Thanks, Rick. So Gretchen here, I've got a question that came to me privately. How did you figure out where to source from, obviously for all your chicken and ingredients, et cetera? And then also, what about all those licenses and rules you have to follow? How did you find out about all of that?
So, again, it's another shameless plug. Can't find it in the book. So in terms of licensing and all these things, I'll be honest with you, in Lake County, it is 10 times easier to operate your food truck business than it is in, let's say, Cleveland or other states, because I know food truck owners in other states. So to operate in Lake County, you pretty much just need your health license. And you need to find out which cities allow maybe street vending. Some cities in Lake County, they're very open to the food truck concept. I know in Paynesville, you can't street vend, which means I can't just pull up to any random street and just set up shop and sell. I have to either be at, an organized event or within someone's driveway if I were to do things in Paynesville. But so in Cleveland, though, there is a multiple-step process. First thing you need to do is go to the gas house. You have to get a propane inspection. You have to apply for a permit to vend within the 13 wards of Cleveland. You have to get approved by the Department of Public Health. You have to go to the fire department. They have to do another fire inspection. Then you have to go back to the city of Cleveland to get vendor badges, as well as you have to apply to each ward within the city of Cleveland to vend. So the process to operate a food truck business in Cleveland costs more. It's about $600-700 every season just to get up and running. But once you get going, you kind of know, people know you. It's an easier process. But the first year is a little challenging because you have to navigate, through all that red tape. In terms of how I source food, there are major players. If you know anything about food business, you have Sysco, Gordon, you have all those different companies. I really like Restaurant Depot. It's in Valley View, so it's a little bit of a drive for me. But I'm able to buy bulk, and they always have what I need in stock. So I can't always say that about all the other vendors.
Thank you, Rick. Connie, I don't know if any others came to you. I see a question here about how much money does it take to start a food truck business?
So it can be as little as $20,000, as much as $200,000, right? And the reason why the range is so large is because it depends on your concept. It depends on what type of truck you need. For me, I didn't have a lot of money when I started. So I have a smaller truck, but I'm very, very, very efficient. So my truck can outsell, and I'm confident saying that, any larger truck you see in Northeast Ohio. And so I had a used vehicle versus a new one. I only need a large griddle, a refrigerator, 3-compartment sink, a hand washing sink, and a fryer. Other trucks, you might need 3 fryers, so it kind of depends on what you want to do within your food truck business.
Thank you, Rick. Connie, did you have others?
Well, I think we've covered some of these already, but one of them is, and we've covered a little bit about the 12-month a year, but do you find that the seasonal weather in Northeast Ohio presents a challenge to replacing a full-time income? And do you have any other sources of income that you supplement during the off-season?
For sure. So part of this is Well, I answer the first part. It does present some challenges, depending on how successful you are during your 6 months. I'll be honest with you. If you like to grind like I do and my fiance does, it's not much of a challenge at all. But if you can't handle during the summer months going out and operating your business, 6, 7 days a week, you're not going to be able to make enough money to sustain throughout the winter. You're going to make some sacrifices in this business, because you have to understand, when you operate this business, you have to be where everyone else is, which means you can't be there as a consumer, right? If there's large festivals, large music events, that's where the money's at. So you're going to be there. You're just going to enjoy it from a different, a different way, and that's operating your business and making money. You can't go there and hang out because you're in this business to make money. So do I have other incomes? Yes. I'll be honest, it's because I'm a hustler. I've always been that. That's who I am. That's in my DNA. I get it from my mother. My mother's very, very, very successful in the United States Census Bureau, but she's always on the tax for 30 years, over 30 years. So I do a wide range of things. I obviously have the food truck company. I have a photo booth company that I utilize as well. And so I try to offer that as a package deal to people, if they're having special events. So it's just another way for me to generate income for myself. And I also work as a corrections officer part-time at Lake County Juvenile Detention Center, as well as coaching track at Lake Erie. So I do a wide range of things just because I believe in multiple streams of income. If my truck goes down, I have to be able to supplement that income for my family another way. So I think that is one of the positive things about operating here in Northeast Ohio, is that you can do it 6 months, and if you want to do something else just to kind of get away from the business for a little period of time, you can. So there's nothing wrong with that.
Thanks, Rick. I have another question. Sorry, Connie, jumping in here. It came to me privately. How did you choose the area to target when you began the business? Did you search for events in the area? And if I remember correctly, you did a lot on the west side. So if you could tell us about that.
So what I did was I found one of the food truck sites. It's called Street Food Finder. And so I was just Googling like food trucks one time, and like that popped up. And so what I did was I found out where all the other trucks are going. And so I found out, okay, well, I saw that like there were like 10 or 15 trucks going to these specific corporate stops all the time. So I said, they're not going there, they're not making money. So I just got on the phone, I would call, try to get past the gatekeeper to get to the person who made the decisions on booking the trucks. And then I would get an email address, and then I would email, and then from there it just kind of grew. Because the more I did that, the more I was able to post where I was at. And then, people that were hosting trucks from their businesses, they would see me and they were like, oh, this is a new truck concept. Let's bring them in. And so I really, really, really grinded doing that in the first 2 years. I'll be honest with you now, I'm fortunate that I really don't have to do that anymore. We're booked 7 days a week for those 6 months period of time. So actually we go about 7 months, seven month period of time. And I don't have to really reach out to many people anymore. We get a lot of referrals because we do good business. So I'm very thankful for that. But it took a few years of building that reputation before we got to that point.
So I have another question that's kind of related to that because, well, first of all, the put the question in, complimented, and said great presentation. So I want to pass that along.
Thank you very much.
And understanding that it's very competitive is asking about market analysis. So you've addressed like where you decided to go. What about your menu? Like, how did you decide chicken? There's a market here, or it's not too crowded, or this is the menu items I want.
So I guess that kind of gets into, all right, so I operated Wing Spot Painesville. So my thing was chicken wings, primarily out of the sports bar, because, there's really not many places I felt I could get a quality wing. And I love eating chicken wings, and I'm very picky about them. And so to get a crispy, deep fried chicken wing that wasn't the size of, a chapstick, to me, it was hard to find. You know, I had a problem paying $1.20, $1.30 per wing for something that I just didn't think was a quality product. And so from there, I kind of researched, all right, well, how many chicken-based trucks are there in Cleveland? And there weren't any that were chicken-based, you know. So we're not just I don't really just do, I do everything. So it was just a lot of research, you know, finding out how many trucks there were and what concepts they were doing. You get a lot of Mexican theme trucks, you know, a lot of sandwiches, but there weren't a lot of people that really wanted to deal with poultry the way I wanted to. And so, you know, we've been successful because of that.
When we talk a little bit about the seasonality, is there a possibility to go out of state during the winter, and would it be profitable to go south?
So we're probably going to relocate south in a couple of years. That's our goal when our oldest graduates from high school. We plan on relocating south so we can operate year round. You can do that. You know, you would just have to really truly research the processes it takes to operate a business within a different state. You know, and I'll be honest, it is a lot more difficult in southern states to operate a food truck business for some reason than it is up here in Ohio. You know, so I don't know if it'd be worth so much time, but you know, there are those opportunities, and there are people that actually do that. You know, it's just something that I'm not interested in doing, going back and forth. If I'm going to do it, I'm just going to relocate and do it year round in the same area.
Rick, I've got a question that came directly to me. You talked about needing to improvise and adapt. Are there any innovations that you've made in your business that you're particularly proud of? That's a great question.
It is a really good question. One, obviously, we talked about it in depth, would just be menu concept, you know, adapting and knowing that I can't change my menu every single day. I had to really find something that would work and that would be profitable for our business. So that's the first thing. But the second thing is kind of like something you deal with on a daily basis, where let's say you have a 2-hour stop and you plan to make about, you know, $1,000 in those 2 hours, right? Sometimes you might run out of certain menu items, so you have to think on the fly, well, this is what I have left. This is what I have left in my truck. How can I improvise and create another menu item that I can throw on the board and continue to make money? You know, and so that's just something that we do on a daily basis, because you never know what's going to catch people's eyes and what they're going to want to purchase. You know, and so if you sell out of an item, how can you take from whatever else you have in your truck to create a whole other menu in the middle of your stop while you have 100 people waiting in line? You know, and so that's just adapting. And, you know, there's some food truck owners that do it well and some don't, you know, and so you can definitely tell who's successful and who's not in this business.
So you addressed a little bit some of the expenses and things on that line. There's a question about, would you recommend buying a used truck when you're first getting started?
I guess it depends how much money you have. I'm just going to be very honest with you. You know, if I had 75 grand to purchase a brand new truck, I would have did that, right? Because in 5 years of owning this truck, I probably put, I don't know, 20, 30,000 into it. Who knows? You know what I mean? Like, you literally, something goes wrong every single day. But, you know, if you have the opportunity to purchase a brand new truck and brand new equipment, for sure do that. For sure. Why not take a new vehicle over a used one? You know, to me, it just makes sense. But there's nothing wrong with purchasing a used one. You just have to really do your due diligence and have you a mechanic that can thoroughly inspect that truck. And that's probably the biggest mistake that I made, is I just bought a truck and I was like, all right, I'm gonna get on the road. Well, I didn't really understand all these things that I've been fixing over the last few years. There were already issues that if I would have taken the time to done a better job of getting that truck inspected, I wouldn't have had those issues. I probably would have bought the truck or would have purchased a different vehicle.
So, Rick, you talked a lot about, your family has been involved with you, and there's a question about overcoming the resistance you get from people, close friends, or if you had some family that weren't supportive of you, and if you ran into that and how you dealt with that.
I mean, like, my family is very, very, very supportive. And so are my circle of friends. And so, every wild concept, idea that I wanted to do in my life, they've always supported me. So I'm very, very thankful for that. So I haven't necessarily dealt with people that were close to me that didn't support what I wanted to do. So I can't 100% speak on that. But if you encounter some individuals that just aren't supportive, because someone asked a question about being able to supplement their full-time income. Well, yes, you can. 100% there's bits you can. Yes, you can do that for sure. I just like to do different things. I travel a lot. My family, my kids have expensive tastes, and so for me, it's always important to have multiple sources of income. But it's going to be hard for, let's say, a wife wants to get into this business. It might be hard for her to go tell her husband, "Hey, I'm going to quit my job and go open up a food truck." But again, it's one of those things where you just have to. If you want to do it, just do it. There's nothing else I can tell you. Just do it, because if not, you're going to be sitting there waiting. 5 years are going to pass. You're going to be asking yourself the same question. You can always get another job and go work for somebody. Always, 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 always. Right? But if you don't take those steps towards being an entrepreneur and building income for yourself, you're just wasting time.
Okay. So we talked about, and you shared your horror story, like a favorite memory, a positive experience, something that sticks out with you that you'd be willing to share.
The Cavs parade, that was like unreal, so it's one of my favorite memories for a lot of different reasons. So at that time, I still had the carry-out restaurant as well as I had the food truck. So this is like my first year, I think it was 5, 6 years ago, first year operating the business. And so, again, I really didn't know what I was doing. I wasn't making any money. And so I'll never forget this. It was Game 7 of the NBA Finals. And so I have a buddy that runs a parking lot downtown. So he got me a spot right on East 9th Street. So I wagered everything I had. I took every dollar I had, and I bought food, and I said, "We just gonna go down here and we're gonna sell. We're gonna see what happens." And so we sold out. We sold out within, I would say, a couple hours. And so what we did was we sent our crew back to our carryout restaurant, and we took everything out of the refrigerator, everything out of the freezers, brought it all the way back downtown, and we sold out of that. And so it was memorable because I believe chances make champions, right? If you don't take any chances, you're not going to be successful. And I truly, truly believe that. And so from that, we took the money that we made from Game 7 of the Cavs parade, and we got another spot for the truck. And so for that one spot that day, we had to pay, I think it was $600 for that spot for one day. But we got down there for the Cavs parade, and it was our largest day we've ever had.
So do you just do one location? Do you normally do the same location, one location every day, or do you sometimes split locations?
So we go to a different location every day that we're out. And I try, for the most part, we try not to go to the same location more than once per month, just so people don't ever get tired of the food that you're offering. So it's usually like once per month. There are enough corporate stops in Cleveland that you can go somewhere once per month, and then you still, have other areas that you can go to. In terms of splitting the day, yes, that to us is called a double. So it would be, for us, usually doubles are corporate stop in the morning, and then a larger music fest or something in the evening. And so those are 12, 14, 16-hour days.
And then we have a question, which is a very good question, on the book. And I think, Gretchen, we have a slide of the book. People are asking what the title is of the book, and but where can they buy it? I know I bought mine on Amazon, but is it sold anywhere locally, or is Amazon the best?
Right now, you can get the book on Amazon. If you just want a digital copy, you can go on Gumroad, just get a digital copy. Barnes & Noble carries the book right now just online. I'm still working through the processes of getting it into the store. It's just been a little challenging with COVID right now. There are a couple independent bookstores in Coventry area that carry the book, or just message me directly. I have obviously author copies of my book, and I would be offering those for a cheaper price than what's on Amazon.
All right, and Gretchen, I know we're getting down on time, but this is it's a good question. I wondered it too. Where do you store your food when you're not at an event? So, like, as you're getting ready for it, or when you come back and you have leftovers, and what do you do with the food?
So I have a commissary. So again, my buddy that owns his restaurant, I use his he has obviously a large walk-in refrigerator, so I use that as commissary. So when I need to load and unload for the day, we just use his kitchen space. But everything else, we make everything fresh. So every morning we get up and we go purchase food. So everything you get off our truck is made to order and is fresh every single day.
And I have someone that wants to know what your best item is, so what you would recommend when they come to your truck.
Well, we're known for our wings. That's what we do. Our apple cinnamon barbecue sauce, which is a homemade sauce, is our #1 seller. But everyone's not a wing person. I understand that. So we do a flaming burrito. So what we do with the burrito is obviously grilled chicken, fresh pico de gallo, flaming hot Cheetos, sriracha, sour cream, guacamole, lettuce, cheese, and it also has the hottest peppers in the world inside of that. So we roll it up and we actually grill melted cheese onto the burrito. So it's large. I mean, it's about that big, about 2-3 pound burrito.
We had some great questions. I'm sorry we're not going to get to all of them today because we need to wrap up. But just a couple of quick things for all of you here. A reminder, if you're here for class, make sure you type into the chat box, and you can send it to just me or to all panelists, your name, the class title, and instructor of who you were here for today. A special thank you not only to Dworkin and Bernstein, who sponsors Learn from Leaders, but also the Mentor Public Library, which helped us promote this event today. And we are giving away the book, so you want to be a food trucker, to 10 lucky folks who attended today. You will get an email from Connie Golden following this webinar. And if you complete a quick 3-question survey, it'll take you less than a minute. You'll be entered into a drawing to get one of those books. And if you are selected, we'll select those winners on Monday. So you have until Sunday to do that survey. If you are selected, we will mail you the book. Okay, so don't even need to leave your home. Please mark your calendar for our next event. Pat Perry will be joining us. He's the author of Reshape, Redefine, Reimagine, and Business Lessons Along the Way. Thursday, November 12th at 12:30. And a big, huge thank you to Rick for joining us today and for your wonderful advice to everybody on the line today. It really takes a village to support entrepreneurs, so thank you so much for joining us today and talking about your experience and sharing it. It really matters to those on the line today who are thinking about doing this for themselves.
Thanks.